Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to lecture 16 of natural language processing. So I only see 2 or 3 people right now. I hope all of you are still following this course closely, because obviously we are going to cover more interesting content as we move through this semester. There's still a lot of NLP left, and we will be covering those in the remaining 6 to 7 weeks of this semester. So today we will continue with our discussion on vector semantics, which we started last time. And we will discuss a specific way of generating vectors, representations for example, words or other linguistic units, and discuss its characteristics. And then maybe today as well, we might start with neural networks, and then following the introduction to neural networks, we'll talk about the other way of developing vector representations, which is based on neural networks. So that is basically the agenda. So are there any questions or other comments before I get started? So are there any questions? So last time we discussed that we would like to represent linguistic units, especially words, with much richer representations. And one way of representing them in a richer format is using a vector to represent one word. And a vector, of course, has multiple values, and each of those values would capture some aspect of that particular word. And the simplest way of developing a vector representation is to explicitly define the feature that is captured by a particular element of the vector. So that is explicit, you can say, feature for each element. But you can also generate vectors in which those features are implicitly defined, but they still capture important aspects of that word. Okay, and we talked about semantics as well last time. So semantics, or meaning of words, which is also synonymous with sense of the word. And we talked about things like relatedness. So relatedness is a general concept which kind of quantifies the relationship between two words or two linguistic units. And similarity is one form of relatedness. Similarity means synonymy, meaning that the two words or senses, to be more precise, have similar sense or the same sense. Okay? Then we say they're synonyms. But relatedness may have other relationship types as well. So you can even have, actually there's a wide range of types. You can even think of part of as a relationship type. For example, a door is a part of a vehicle, for example. Car door is a part of a vehicle, or engine is a part of a vehicle. Okay. And of course, you can have many other such relationship types. One broad category, which we'll talk about later on as well, is superordinates or subordinates. So superordinate is higher concept, and subordinate is lower concept. Concept here again is somewhat similar to a sense. Okay? A sense, of course, is meaning. So you can think of course, not directly sense, it's a bigger thing. So you can think of, for example, furniture as a concept, and then at the lower level, chair is a type of furniture. So this is, furniture would be superordinate and chair would be subordinate. So again, there is a relationship. So it's not necessarily a similarity type of relationship, it's a superordinate subordinate relationship. Okay? So on the other hand, for example, let's say if you talk about car and let's say bike, for example. So this is more closely a similarity relationship because both things are, you can say, vehicles. So they may be at the same level of concept. So car and bike may be at the same level. So you don't have that kind of hierarchy of superordinate and subordinate. Okay? So here we can say that the relationship between the two is more of a similarity, or there is greater similarity between car and vehicle, car and bike than, for example, car and vehicle. Vehicle would be a superordinate. Car would be a type of vehicle. Okay? So moving on, so linguists have kind of struggled with how to define meanings of words and how to, you can say, characterize that meaning. So one way is through relationships with other words. But in an absolute sense, how would you quantify or define the meaning of a word? So earlier linguists also oftentimes use logic. So reasoning like car is different from bike, a car has, so kind of defining things more precisely and more logically. So obviously that is something that linguists can do, but for computational purposes, that doesn't help much. Okay? So one of the ideas that came out of all of this discussion of how to define meaning of words was the concept of distributional semantics. So distributional semantics basically means that meaning of words is characterized, or you can say characterized by the words around them in running text. So in other words, meaning of words are defined by the words that appear close to them in normal writing of that particular language. So, for example, and by the way, this is also a philosophical discussion, but of course now it has been adopted as a practical idea that we can use in applications. So oftentimes in the early days, this was also called a distributional semantics hypothesis. So the hypothesis is that the meaning of words is defined by the meanings, by the words that appear around it. Okay? So for example, let's say if you talk about university, this is a word university. So in any writing that has the word university, there might be other words that are used with or close to or in proximity with this word university. So what are some of those words? So for example, you can have student. So you can even have teacher. You can have word like campus. You can have, for example, course, major. So all of these words would usually appear close to the word university in a document or in normal writings of a particular language. Okay? So the whole idea of distributional semantics is we therefore quantify the meaning of words based on the occurrences of other words that appear with that word in normal writings in the corpus or corpora. Okay? And then we'll use this to build representations. Okay? So this is known as a distributional hypothesis or distributional semantics. So similarly, for example, we talked about the polysemous word bank last time. So the sense bank as a financial institution would be identified by other words that appear close to it. So for example, money would appear close to it. And for example, transaction would appear close to it, and so on. While the other sense bank would have words like water or fishing or tourism and so on. Okay? Okay, so now moving on, let's now try to use this idea to develop vector representations for words. So in general, there are two, so we want to develop vector representations. Okay? And in general, the representation that we get may be sparse or dense. So sparse vectors are those that have lots of zeros. Dense vectors are those that have very few or no zeros. Okay? So we will first start with the more traditional approach and then move on to the more recent approaches. So co-occurrence matrices quantify the occurrence of words in different contexts. And co-occurrences or co-occurrence matrices, we have seen this before as well when we talked about language modeling, where we were looking at co-occurring words actually in sequence, one after the other. But here we will kind of generalize that to co-occurrences of words in some context or co-occurrence of word with another entity like a document. Okay? So first we'll start with the term document matrix. So usually term, type, word, linguistic unit, these are often used interchangeably. But as we discussed before, type is a unit in the vocabulary, token is a occurrence of that unit in the running text, and term is usually oftentimes associated with type also. So it's part of the vocabulary. Okay? So let's say if you have m terms / types and n documents, this would be a m by n matrix. Okay? And the simplest form of an m by n matrix is you actually count the word that occurs in that matrix. So for example, if I call this matrix F, so Fij is the number of terms I appearing in doc J, or count of term I appearing in doc J. ठीक है? So you have a now 2D matrix. Rows are terms, columns are documents, and each cell value is the number of times that a particular word occurs in a particular document. Of course, to build this, you have a corpus, and a corpus is of natural language, common writings for that particular language. So I would say words. So I'm going to replace terms with words now. So again, interchangeably use हो रहे हैं because words is a more commonly understood term. So words आपके पास rows में हैं, ठीक है? And then documents are in columns, ठीक है? So I will denote words with WI, and then of course document DJ, ठीक है? So, and this is, so once you have this matrix and you have filled it out using a corpus, this word I is a complete row of this matrix. So in a way, this is a vector. So I bolded it. So it's a vector. And what is the size of this vector? Vector of size. कितने मेरे पास documents हैं? N है. ठीक है ना? And what does this vector contain? It will contain counts of this word in all the documents. So similarly, if you take another vector WJ, some other word WJ, so this would be another vector. So now you have two vectors, and these vectors now are actually their representations. And what is the basis of the representation? The basis is the count of words in the documents in which they appear. Okay? So given these two vectors, you can compute the similarity, or more appropriately the relatedness, using some similarity measure or co-occurrence measure. Okay? The most common co-occurrence measure for text is the cosine similarity. Okay? So the cosine between Wi and Wj is basically what? So basically it is the inner product of Wi, Wj divided by, of course, the norm of the vectors Wi and Wj. Okay? And geometrically, this is the angle between these two words when represented as a point in n-dimensional space. Okay? In n-dimensional space. So in a way, you can think of these vectors as embeddings. Embeddings का मतलब क्या होता है? Embeddings का मतलब होता है कि आपने किसी स्पेस में points बनाए हुए हैं. So this is an embedding in n-dimensional space. Okay? So each vector, each word is represented by a vector of n, which means that it is a point in n-dimensional space. Two vectors would also be 2 points in n-dimensional space. The similarity between, the relatedness between those is quantified by the cosine, which is the angle between those two vectors. Okay? So this is one of the most popular way of quantifying or or representing the meaning of words as vectors. ठीक है, अब इसमें हर एक element की value क्या है? This is actually the document in which those word occurs. So पहला element would be document 1, nth element would be the nth document. ठीक है, so इसको हम further generalize कर देते हैं. हम कहते हैं now we say the term context matrix. पहले हमने context specific कह दिया था, document है, but in general this context could be something else as well. ठीक है, so context क्या हो सकता है? So context could be, for example, a sentence. ठीक है, context could be a sentence, it could be a paragraph, it could be a document as we saw before. What else? It could even be other things, like for example a topic. आपने topics में divide किए हुए documents, for example, and it could be other things. ठीक है, so using now this matrix, term by context matrix, and of course then counting the occurrence of each term in each context, you again get a representation for the words, for the terms. ठीक है, and the relatedness between those terms would then be defined by a measure like cosine similarity. So this representation so far that I've talked about is sparse.
Call. Send message. Incoming call. Period.
Okay. So this representation is in general sparse. So why is it sparse? Can someone tell me quickly? Why would there be many zeros for each of those vectors W? So for any given term, so let's say, let me take a word like, for example, hospital. Hospital. So hospital is a word that would occur in some contexts and not in others. So if we talk about context as documents and the corpus is documents, let's say all papers on IEEE Explorer, IEEE Explore, which is a database of papers published under the IEEE banner. Okay? So the word hospital would obviously only occur in papers that are related to medicine or even social sciences maybe, and sometimes maybe humanities, but they will be less likely be seen in other papers like, for example, computer science or electrical engineering or math and so on. So all those documents in which hospital does not occur, which may be many, would be zero, would have a value of zero. Okay? And then of course, this is a word that's more common. Then there are very specialized words. So for example, in computer science, if I talk about words like bootstrapping, for example. So bootstrapping would only occur in a few documents, even in the computer science domain or the statistics domain. And all of the others would have a value of zero. So such representations are sparse and also quite long. So usually you'll have tons of documents or other contexts for which you are trying to find those values. So
send message. Incoming call.
I don't know who is calling me. All right. Okay, so we talked about various contexts. There's a special another context which we call, so we talked about context as documents or as paragraphs. So you can also have words as context. So in other words, if you use this, then what you get is word by word matrix. So now, of course, if it is a word by word matrix and vocabulary size is M, then you get an M by M matrix. This is, of course, a square matrix. So rows में भी words हैं, columns में भी words हैं. जो column में words हैं, वो हम context words लेते हैं. And जो rows में हैं, those are the actual words that we are trying to monitor. अब वो words में context word किस तरह बनते हैं? So we use those context words to define a window. So for example, एक word मैं लेता हूँ, let's say university लेता हूँ, a context word university. So I define a window around this word university. And the words that appear in that window would be counted in the rows. Okay? So my context word is university. So let's say मेरे पास so matrix मैंने बनाना है, तो let's say the university, and then let's say I have Lahore here, and I have, let's say, university also, and off also. ठीक है? So let's say मेरे पास एक corpus है, Lahore University of Management Sciences. So this is my running text, my corpus, और मैंने university को context word लिया है. And also I define a window of size +1 and -1 words. My context is +1 and -1 words around the chosen word university. ठीक है? So इस केस में फिर क्या होगा? So लाहौर का यूनिवर्सिटी के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में लाहौर 1 दफा आ रहा है. ठीक है? यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ कोर्स ये भी 1 है. ऑफ कोर्स दिस वुड बी द सेम, एंड ऑफ भी 1 आ रहा है. ठीक है? And let's say if you have another word, let's say sciences. Sciences, according to our window, does not occur in the context of university. ठीक है? So in this way, we are developing a matrix which is centered around context, which are actual words. Okay? So in this way, we capture the co-occurrences of words, not just co-occurrence of word with documents or other types, but with other words. Okay? So any questions so far?
सर ये तो अभी फॉर वन डॉक्यूमेंट बनाया, तो सब डॉक्यूमेंट्स के लिए फिर हम ऐसे ही बनाएंगे? और
हाँ, मतलब वन डॉक्यूमेंट नहीं है, कोई बड़ा कॉर्पस है, होल कलेक्शन ऑफ टेक्स्ट है. इट कुड बी मल्टीपल डॉक्यूमेंट्स. उसमें जहां भी हम देखेंगे यूनिवर्सिटी आ रहा है, उसके लेफ्ट और राइट वाले वर्ड्स हम देखेंगे, और वो हम इस मैट्रिक्स में ऐड करते जाएंगे. ठीक है?
सर तो यानी हम वर्ड्स को काउंट कर रहे हैं या बाइनरी है, ये 0 1 कर रहे हैं?
नहीं, ये काउंट है, और अभी मैं थोड़ी देर तक और भी ऑप्शंस बताऊंगा. हियर इज काउंट, इट्स नॉट बाइनरी. बाइनरी में, इसमें बाइनरी डजंट वर्क वेल. We have to use counts because we want to also quantify the strength of the co-occurrences between two words. Okay. So So this is how you build a word by word matrix, co-occurrence matrix, and you basically fill that co-occurrence matrix with the count in this case. So next we will discuss a couple of other ways of filling those values. Matrix इसी तरह ही बनता है. अच्छा, one thing के context का window size होना क्या चाहिए? ठीक है? So window size, so as I said, +1, -1 words. ठीक है? So in general, +n, -n words, where n in most practical cases is between 3 to 7. ठीक है? So 7 से generally ज़्यादा नहीं होता. So if n is small, we are only typically looking at words 1 or 2 on the left and right of the context word. And that would capture more of a syntactic relationship between the words. Syntactic या grammatical कह लें, because syntax and grammar is kind of often used interchangeably. मतलब जैसे हमारी लैंग्वेज किस तरह लिखी जाती है, एक नाउन होगा तो उससे पहले ये आना चाहिए, आर्टिकल आना चाहिए, डिटर्मिनर आना चाहिए, and so on. So very close, let's say n1 or 2 usually would highlight syntactic relationships between words. But if you use n to be larger, then semantics get captured more with larger n. ठीक है? So let's say आपके पास n5 है, तो आप semantics भी ज़्यादा कैप्चर कर सकेंगे. Semantics में for example क्या चीज़ आएगी? Let's say I एक word है, तो I के इर्द गिर्द में भी spectacles आ सकते हैं, but it may not be the immediate previous word or immediate next word, might be 4 or 5 words away. But here you notice that the relation that we will be capturing is more of a semantic nature. Okay, I is related to spectacles. ठीक है? While इस तरह का word di, so di is an article and I is noun. ठीक है ना? So ये एक more of a syntactic relationship है. ठीक है? So that's actually general idea. I mean, it's not like hard and fast. n small होगा तो ज़्यादा syntactic relationships highlight हो जाएंगे, n ज़्यादा होगा तो semantics भी आने शुरू हो जाएंगे. n बहुत ज़्यादा कर दें let's say, तो semantics फिर mix होने शुरू हो जाएंगे. Think of a whole document. पूरा document है. तो document में काफ़ी often times multiple sections होते हैं. एक section में एक topic discuss हो रहा है, दूसरे में दूसरा हो रहा है. तो you will be mixing the semantics. ठीक है? Okay. So far we had quantified or filled out the matrix using counts. So there are two other ways, common ways of filling out those matrix. One is called the TF, IDF, measure or value, and the other is using the PPMI, positive. So I'll just mention what those are. So TF, IDF basically is term frequency. Inverse document frequency. So this measure, you can say, is very popular in information retrieval. So information retrieval is basically concerned with retrieving documents given a query consisting of words or terms. Okay? So what is the idea behind this measure? So TF-IDF of a word WI in some document, let's say DJ. अब document मैंने लिखा ये context भी हो सकता है, ठीक है ना? Remember हमने ऊपर कहा था कि document is one particular type of context. ठीक है? of course in IR this is the document, पर वहाँ document retrieval कर रहे हैं, ठीक है? So this is computed as term frequency multiplied by 1 over document frequency, ठीक है? So that's why it's called term frequency inverse document frequency, ठीक है? अब TF क्या होता है? TF basically for a given word WI in a document DJ is basically a normalized count or frequency, you can say. So basically it's DJ, ठीक है? Count of word I in document DJ divided by there might be a number of ways of normalizing this. The most, I would say, one of the popular ones is max count of word in DJ, ठीक है? So we are talking about a specific document DJ, a specific context. उस context में हमने देखना है कि ये word कितनी दफा आ रहा है, वो numerator है, और denominator में हमने उस context में कौन सा word सबसे ज़्यादा दफा आ रहा है, उससे हमने divide करना है उसके count से, so that this value would always lie between 0 and 1. Because जो maximum दफा उस context में word आ रहा है, उसका भी हम TF निकालेंगे, वो let's say 10 divided by 10 होगा, वो 1 होगा, बाकी सारे उससे कम होंगे, ठीक है? So this is term frequency. So document frequency क्या है? Document frequency, of course, word I of DJ. So this is basically a number of docs containing word WI divided by total number of docs, ठीक है? Of course, okay. So actually, DF is not impacted by the particular document DJ. It's a property of the word only and the corpus. Okay. So this measure would give greater value to words that appear in fewer documents or fewer contexts, and would give lesser weight to those words that appear in all contexts. So in other words, this measure kind of increases the discrimination of words across documents or context. Okay? So if a word occurs in all the documents, this value would become 0. Why? Because ये जो document frequency क्या होगी? So document frequency would be 1 over 1. By the way, ऊपर जो formula लिखा था वो थोड़ा सा फिर मैं ठीक कर देता हूँ, एक सेकंड गलत है थोड़ा सा. Actually ये log भी होता है, log of, ठीक है? So if you take the log of basically 1, that would be 0. So ये value 0 हो जाएगी, ठीक है? So if a word occurs in all the contexts, इसका मतलब है कि वो word is not very discriminative in my corpus. I cannot use it to, let's say, distinguish between other words. So उसको हमने automatically kind of low value दे दी है या close to 0 दे दी है, ठीक है? Of course, for purely word co-occurrence analysis, this is not very much recommended. इतना ज़्यादा recommended नहीं होता. आप usually counts use कर लें या जैसे हम next week measure पढ़ेंगे PPMI वो use कर लें. TF-IDF is more useful when your actual end task is more discriminative in nature. Let's say classification करनी है आपने या clustering करनी है. उसके लिए maybe TF-IDF would be a better representation. ठीक है? But just for completeness sake यहाँ हमने ये measure भी discuss कर लिया है. Okay, so now moving on to the other measure, which is called PPMI, which is called the positive point-wise mutual information. So mutual information, of course, is entropy. So point-wise is meaning that you don't sum over all possible values, you just take individuals and then based on that you compute it. So we'll start with actually PMI, which is point-wise mutual information, not the positive point-wise mutual information. So what is PMI of, let's say, a word WI? And let's say now I'm going to use context CJ. Document भी हो सकता है, ठीक है? C is a context. Okay. So this is defined as log of probability of word I in context J divided by probability of word I, probability of context J. ठीक है? So log के अंदर हमारे पास जो fraction है, what is it? What is it? It's basically a joint probability of the word and context divided by the probability of the individual word and the probability of the context. Okay. So from probability theory, you know that if the word and the context are independent, then numerator का जो joint है, that can be written as the probability of WI CJ would become equal to WI CJ if WI and CJ are independent. ठीक है? ठीक है? So, and if they are independent, the ratio would be 1, log of 1 would be 0. ठीक है ना? So PMI, point-wise mutual information, would be 0. So, but if they are not independent, then this value would be non-zero. And in general, this value would range between minus infinity and infinity. Okay? So if the value is positive, then generally we mean that there is positive co-occurrence between the word and the context. By the way, ये जो context है एक और word भी हो सकता है. Remember ये सारी discussion हमने पीछे की थी. Document हो सकता है, but very often it is another word. ठीक है? So when it is positive, it means that there is positive trend between the word and the context, meaning that if one occurs, the other increases, the other occurs, the other increases. And that is what is more important to us. The negative value, which is lesser occurrence, meaning that when a word occurs, it kind of negates the occurrence of the other words, which would mean that you have a negative PMI. So that is not very important for most analysis, and especially for co-occurrence analysis of terms. So to avoid that, we use the PPMI. We just retain the positive values. So PPMI then basically is max of PMI and 0. Okay? So if PMI is negative, we just take 0. Okay? So to summarize, we have talked about various ways of vector representations. You can have word context representations. Context could be many, document, paragraph, sentences, and they can also be other words, which is the more common in practice for NLP. Of course, for NR, for IR, it would be documents or paragraphs or something else. For NLP, the context is usually other words, because as I said before, if there are other words, then we are capturing syntactic as well as semantic relationship between words. Okay? So that's one thing. The second thing that we talked about is how do you fill those metrics? You can fill it using simple counts, which is okay. You can fill it using TF, IDF also, which is also fine, but you have to be a bit careful because this is generally more recommended for end goals that involve classification and clustering. And then, of course, the more generally recommended is use PPMI, which is based on co-occurrence. Okay? So any questions so far? Any questions? So from any of these methods, we have the matrix F, which is a word-word co-occurrence matrix. So from this, you will have representations for words, the rows of this matrix. You also have representation for context, and context for this case will also be words. Okay? So in other words, you can have actually two ways of quantifying the relatedness between words. So one way is cosine between rows. The other is cosine between columns, because columns also represent words, rows also represent words. Okay. So you can get two measures. Usually both of these measures will be very close. And oftentimes it's difficult in practice कि कौन सा वाला हमने use करना है for a particular application. Of course, if you go into the literature, people have, linguists and other NLP people have mentioned a few pros and cons. But I think for this course, I would say that it's sufficient that there are two ways of quantifying relatedness, using the columns or using the rows. Okay? And usually we'll go with the rows, but you may try out the columns as well. So is this point clear? So these vectors are sparse. Okay? So these vectors are sparse. There will be a lot of zero, and there will also be long, fairly long vocabulary size. Vocabulary size are usually in the tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands. So long as well as sparse. So traditionally, इनको dense बनाने के लिए we usually use SVD, singular value decomposition, which is a technique from statistics. So I'm not going to go into the details of this, but just you need to know. So singular value decomposition में you decompose the matrix F into three matrices U, U, S sigma, and V transpose. Okay? The तीन matrices हैं. And this decomposition is based on the idea of finding dimensions along which there is maximum variance. First, you find dimensions for the rows, which are terms, which will give you the U matrix. Then you find dimensions along the columns, which is documents, for example, or context, or they could be other words. That would be the V matrix. Okay? So basically what is happening is we are projecting our original representation into a different space where you have maximum variance for the dimensions, and those dimensions are ordered from high to low. Okay? So in other words, let's say U in general is a matrix of size. So I'm going to use, you can use it, apply SPD to square matrices also, but I'm going to use the rectangular format just to make it clearer. Okay? So let's say आपने U matrix लिया, U matrix में जो columns होंगे, these are the dimensions for the terms. ठीक है? So हर एक term would be represented in these dimensions. And these dimensions would be ordered from high variance to low variance. So you can actually drop those and you can create a new matrix U prime that contains only the first k columns of this matrix U. So this would then be K, where K is less than N. Okay? So this matrix in general would be dense. So U prime is dense. And of course, since you have truncated it, it's also now smaller, shorter length vectors. Okay? So instead of using F, you can now use V, use U. Or similarly, as in the previous case, आपके पास दो options हैं. आप U के साथ काम कर सकते हैं या V के साथ कर सकते हैं. ठीक है ना? जैसे पहले हमने दो options बताई थी, यहाँ भी दो options आ रही हैं. So it's all up to you to which one to use. दोनों में generally differences थोड़ा ही होगा, but as I said before, linguists and NLP have looked into this in more detail in papers, so, but most of that is practically not very relevant. ठीक है? So is this clear? So इस तरह करने से now you do get dense representations which are somewhat shorter, but the approach is still based on co-occurrence. So any questions? No questions. So before I start discussing the other approach for generating vector representations, I would introduce neural networks. Because of course you can explain that technique without neural networks as well, but I think it's easier to explain using neural networks. Okay. So and my introduction to neural networks would be directly following our discussion on logistic regression. So neural networks are nothing but logistic regressions or multiple logistic regression one after the other. ठीक है? So logistic regression में क्या होता है? So if you remember, we talked about the binary logistic regression. उसमें y output थी और आपके पास sigmoid था या logistic function था that was applied to vector w transpose with vector feature vector x. ठीक है ना? ये था आपके पास. That was logistic regression. And for multi lingual logistic regression, you have a vector y. You apply the softmax. You have a matrix W multiplying with the vector X. So this Y now is a vector actually. So I hope all of you recall this. We talked about this when we discussed logistic regression. So Y, for example, binary regression mein Y is the probability for class 1. Sigmoid or logistic function is the S function. W is the weight matrix. X is the feature vector. So W, small w is the weight vector. X is the feature vector. But when we talked about multinomial logistic regression or multi-class logistic regression, we said that we have to learn K models. K is the number of classes. So जब K models learn करेंगे, we have K set of features. We have K set of vectors W. All those K set of vectors, we put them into a matrix. ठीक है? So that gives you the matrix capital W. Capital W into X. और बाद में हमने उस पे फंक्शन क्या अप्लाई किया था? सॉफ्ट मैक्स किया था. Soft max will give you probabilities for all the y's, y1 to yk. Okay. So this expression, either of these, is the main building block of a neural network. One building block of a neural network. Okay. And a neural network has multiple such blocks, one after the other. Logistic regression में एक होता था, neural network में multiple, one after the other. ठीक है? So a neural network essentially is multiple logistic regressions, one after the other. Just to highlight this, let's say मेरे पास दो logistic regression models हैं. तो पहला model would give me y sigmoid wx. ठीक है? अब ये जो y इधर निकला है, this would give me z. sigmoid नहीं था वो. तो soft max है ये, ठीक है? So again soft max of some other w prime, let's say कह देता, into y. And you can continue this. A is equal to soft max of w prime prime of y of z and so on. ठीक है? And whatever your last output is, let's say b पे पहुंच जाते हैं आप. So that is my output. Input क्या थी मेरे पास? Input मेरे पास x थी. ठीक है? So this essentially is a fully connected feed-forward neural network. Oh, yeah, your phone is up. Fully connected feed-forward neural network. ठीक है? Fully connected, इसको मैं अभी figure दिखाता हूँ. Why we call it fully connected? So okay, so far is this somewhat clear? Okay, so let me try to show you the schematic of a neural network. So what we have is, if I want to draw this schematically, and I hope you can bear my drawing and hope I can draw it well. So you have the vector x as input. ठीक है? So this is the first layer of neurons. और न्यूरॉन्स में क्या हो रहा है, यहाँ आपका सॉफ्ट मैक्स या जो भी आपका फंक्शन है इधर चल रहा है. एंड व्हाट इज बिटवीन एक्स ऑफ कोर्स इज अ वेक्टर. ये इनपुट्स हैं आपके वेक्टर्स के. ठीक है? So all of these now are connecting with the neurons. Each input is connecting with all the neurons. और ये जो आउटपुट इसके हैं, this is actually your y. And जो बीच में जो weights, हर एक लिंक के साथ कोई weight है which is being multiplied with each element of x. This is your matrix W. ठीक है? So each input element of the vector x is connected to all the neurons in the layer, and x के कुछ numbers होंगे, x का elements के कुछ numbers होंगे, neurons के कुछ numbers होंगे. वो numbers कितने होंगे? x के of course vector x का size है, और जो neurons के size क्या होगा? वो y का size है. y again remember is a vector, output है. And accordingly, depending on the size of x and y, आपका matrix W define हो रहा है, which is actually the weight assigned to each link from each element of x to each neuron in the layer of neurons. And then of course you can continue this onwards. So you can think of input. This is input. Then you have one neuron, which is we call layer 1. Then we have another layer, L2, maybe another layer, L3, and then of course the final output. Okay. So information is fed from the left input to the right in order or in sequence. Any questions? Any questions? So, so you have a basic idea of a feed-forward neural network. We'll now define, you can say, the some of the parameters in the neural network. Okay. So as I said, x is a vector, is the input. This is input. It's a vector of size, let's say, okay, of size m मैं कह देता हूँ, although n भी कर सकता हूँ. I'm just trying to be consistent with my previous notation. ठीक है? So then you have various layers, and each layer would output a value y. So you have layer 1, ठीक है? So this would output a vector y, which is a vector, ठीक है? And इसका size, let's say I call it n1. So in general, you have layer n, y इसका आएगा, ऑफ कोर्स ये जो y डिस्टिंग्विश आप सुपरस्क्रिप्ट से समटाइम्स करते हैं, यहाँ मैंने लिखा नहीं है, सुपरस्क्रिप्ट आप एक डाल सकते हैं, ठीक है। और इसका साइज ऑफ कोर्स क्या होगा, n स्मॉल n, ठीक है, सुपर सबस्क्रिप्ट n, ठीक है। एंड देन यू हैव द आउटपुट, ठीक है। दिस इन जनरल आल्सो इज अ वेक्टर, और लेट्स से मेरे ख्याल से नोटेशन, चलें इसको भी y कह देते हैं, y आउटपुट कह देंगे, और इसका भी ऑफ कोर्स कोई साइज होगा। दिस साइज would be dependent on what you are trying to solve. So let's say if it is a binary classification problem, this would be either a scalar or just two values. If it is a multi-class classification problem, then its size would be k, which is the number of classes. Okay. So at each level, so this kind of neural network is basically called, so I said there were input layer and number of, you can say, hidden layers. Those are hidden layers in between layer 1 to layer n, and then there's an output layer. Okay. So this layer in the neural network terminology is basically called the n+1 layer neural network. So we don't count the input layer, we count the hidden layers and the output layer. Okay. So a neural network that has just one hidden layer would be a 2-layer neural network. A neural network with 2 hidden layers would be a 3-layer neural network. Okay. And each of these layers perform a nonlinear transformation. So remember we talked about the softmax. ठीक है ना, softmax actually is not technically true. Usually softmax is applied only to the last layer because we want to do a classification. So softmax is not usually used in the hidden layers. So in the hidden layers, we usually use the sigmoid or its variant, which I will probably discuss next time, some of them next time. And softmax and sigmoid are used in output layer based on task. ठीक है, जो भी आपका टास्क है उसके बेसिस पे आपने सॉफ्टमैक्स लेना है मल्टी क्लास क्लासिफिकेशन के लिए, सिग्मॉइड लेना है बाइनरी क्लासिफिकेशन के लिए. ठीक है. So as such, as you notice, there are sigmoid layer used in hidden layer, so there is going to be non-linear transformations. Multiple non-linear transformations are occurring before you reach the output layer, where you again have a non-linear transformation for the final decision making or classification. So as such, a neural network is a highly non-linear mapping from input to output. Okay. So the parameters in the neural networks are the matrices W. So there will be a matrix between input and hidden, hidden and next hidden, hidden and next hidden until the last layer. So all those W's would be the parameters which you need to fix and learn in the training process. And training, of course, is done using the same stochastic gradient descent approach that we discussed for logistic regression. ठीक है, I think I will stop here. So any questions? So there are only a few people attending. So quiz का हमने क्या करना है? Shall we start quizzes on Monday or we should wait till the next week? following week. No feedback.
दोनों ठीक है
जी,
मंडे से स्टार्ट कर लेते हैं।
I was asking, should we restart the quizzes from Monday?
जी जी सर स्टार्ट कर लेते हैं।
यस सर
चलें, ठीक है, वेरी नाइस। ठीक है, तो इंशाल्लाह फिर मंडे को हमारा 6th क्विज होगा and we will be doing minimum 9 inshallah. And of course, as I said, if we do minimum 9, at least 9 or 10, let's say, we will be dropping 2. Okay. Any other questions?